Without further ado, I am going to get us all started and hand it over to our keynote today. So I'm joined by Sintra Hoffman and Bruce Cooper to talk to you more about resilience. So a quick overview on Bruce himself. Bruce Cooper is an example of resiliency at its finest. Coop started his career in TV news in 1986 at Channel 12 in Phoenix, following his graduation from ASU. Over the course of time, he rose through ranks, establishing himself as one of the best sports anchors and reporters in the television industry. As a pinnacle of his career, Coop showed the world his resilience as we all tuned in during his incredibly painful point in his life when his son, NFL player Marquise Cooper, was lost at sea and never to be found during a boating accident. Following that trying time, Coop then dealt with his own life-threatening experience, nearly dying from a massive heart attack. He did it all while being in the public light, never wavering from it, upholding his values, appreciation for his friends, family, and being a role model to us all. And even faced with unintended twists and turns throughout and brought to us by COVID, he is stronger than ever, here to share with Sun Health what he does to keep his head up, faith intact, and give him back to the community. And he'll be joined by Sintra Hoffman, CEO of WESTMARC, to kind of go over more their life experiences and how to stay resilient. So I'm going to hand it over to them. So Sintra and Bruce, thank you so much for joining us today and allowing this opportunity to work together to talk to us all about resiliency and the different ways it can influence our lives.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. It's certainly a pleasure to be here today. As Alex said, I'm Sintra Hoffman. I'm with WESTMARC, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to sit with you all this morning and share a little bit of my story. And really, the main event is our friend here, Coop. But you know, we kind of connected based on some of the losses that we've both experienced. And it really doesn't matter how you experience loss. Loss is loss, and it kind of sucks when it happens. But you go through it and you build resiliency as a result. And so first, before we kick things off, I'd really like to thank your CEO, Joe LaRue. Joe LaRue is just an incredible leader, an incredible partner in the community. We've known each other for about 15 years. And I'd like to share, you know, about 15 years ago, we both came into a meeting, representing our respective organizations. It was kind of an adversarial situation. And I didn't know what to expect, much like this year, we don't know what to expect. But the way Joe walked in, the way he handled the entire situation, the conversation, was just so graceful. And what a calm demeanor of just being able to move through things. And that really is how he's handled his leadership this past year with his team, with his residents, and with his community. So honestly, I can't say enough wonderful things about Joe LaRue, and we're all fortunate to have him here. And he is one of my mentors. So excited again to be here, and applaud Sun Health for putting this program on, and again, our partner here at the University of Phoenix. So I'm going to share just a little bit of my story and my loss before I turn it over to Coop over here. Back in 2009, I had my own challenges, and you don't really think about things. You kind of move through life and you get to where you are. But a few months ago, I was on a Zoom call, as we all are today, with the Grand Canyon University Advisory Board, Honors College Advisory Board. I'm on that board, and we were talking about the students today and some of the challenges that they've dealt with and how they've, the things that they've lost during this time frame. And as I was listening to the loss that they were experiencing, I was thinking, you know, I feel like I've handled things quite well. And these poor students, I get it. It's the first time that they're dealing with something like this. So it makes sense. And so it also got me to thinking, this past year, some of the things I love doing, I love working out. I was able to continue working out. It was at 7 a.m. I'm not a morning person, but I was able to do it. It was not fun, but I did it. I got done what I needed to do. I started swimming. I totally geeked out. I had the nose clip, I had the cap, I had the goggles, and I was out there in the pool. I did things that I would not have normally done. Well, I love to travel. We had a big European trip planned, didn't happen. But I added 5 states to my bucket list this year by a road trip, doing a couple of road trips. Work is a key piece of my life. I love to work, and I was able to really transition the things that we did at WESTMARC immediately. I got the support of my board. I got the support of my team, and we were able to just really transition very quickly. And so we saw success. It was surprising, but we saw success. My family, like you, Coop, my family is number one. And we do a big family vacation every year, and we were not able to do that. But we were Zooming every Friday, and I was Zooming with 82-year-old parents. So that was fun, but we did it. And, it just brought us all together in different ways. And so I also reach out to the senior population who, I applaud you. I mean, there's been a lot of things that you've had to do differently this year, but you've made it, and you've made it successful. It doesn't mean that it hasn't always been stressful, right? But when I step back and I look at and I listen to my board that says, wow, you did, you added these new programs, you added funding, how did you grow an organization during a pandemic? And it really happened because we were able to just jump in and say, well, let's get our members out there. There's a lot of great things happening in the West Valley today and over the last several years. We're growing. We're on fire. We're 1.7 million residents. We're growing to over 2 million by 2030. So all of these things that had really been teed up for success, we were on such a great track and trajectory. I didn't want to lose that momentum, and so I thought, let's do some virtual tours of these construction projects. Let's get them out there to people. So we started doing that, and it was actually really successful. We found that we were able to get the brokerage and development community attending these things and listening and paying attention to what's happening in the West Valley. Whereas in the past, it's kind of a hike. You got to drive, you got to get in your car, you got to do all these things. So we were able to take that experience to the next level. And again, kind of listening to, okay, well, how do we reach the success? It got me to thinking of, this is, I guess, not my first rodeo, but you don't really think of resilient. You don't plan, I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to put it on my vision board. But all of a sudden I realized, back in 2009, I lost my job. And I didn't lose it because of the economy. I lost it because of politics. I lost it because they said, you know what? We're going to go in a different direction, and you're not part of that. Well, that kind of sucked because I built my career. I worked really hard. I put in the time, the hours, the blood, the energy, all of that. So that was really difficult. I went through a separation, loss of a marriage, loss of a life together. And I was raising a teenage daughter, which is, trust me, it's not fun at that time. You love them, but it's not fun at that time. So all of these things were happening, and it was really difficult. And people say, you got to reinvent yourself. You got to do this, you got to do that. And I didn't know what those things meant. But I stepped back one day and I realized I'm pretty energetic, and I keep going because I don't want to feel, right? And I realized I couldn't get to the next level until I stopped and I really dealt with what I was feeling and my emotions. And I remember that day, I cleaned my house, is what we do. You put the music on, it's really loud, you cry, you do all that good stuff because you're having to kind of break down to move forward, and to start over. So with that, I felt that I was able to, obviously get on track and get where I am today. But again, you don't think about these things in the moment, you just do it. And when I was preparing for this event, I looked up the word resiliency. What does that mean? And so, and what exactly is that? So I took away 4 key things for me, or 4 key areas. One is, don't wait until don't keep waiting for the next shoe to drop. It's going to drop and we're going to deal with it. The thing that resonated with me was fear of failure. I was such a perfectionist. Everything I did had to be a certain way that when it fell apart, I didn't know how to deal with it. And I was afraid to take the next step because I didn't want to fail. So it taught me that, let go of that failure. Yeah, we're all going to fail. That's part of growing. The new programs that we kicked off last year, guess what? If they fail in this year and we move on to something else. You don't have to hang on to these things. So throughout these things, and then also stop waiting for the worst to happen. Oh my God, my life is tragic. What next? Don't ask what's next. When it comes, you'll be able to deal with it. So these lessons really, kind of taught me, but again, I didn't think about it. It was built into your body, your mind, your soul. It just moves in that different direction. So I really feel that that is what I have to impart to a lot of the folks today. I know a lot of the attendees are the senior population, and they've been through the knocks, right? You all have been through your own knocks, and you know what I'm saying. But there's also, younger people that are listening to us today that have not been through those challenges yet. They'll come. And I think this whole process of, something hits you in the face and you have to change directions, it's just part of life. So here I am today. Obviously I survived and I thrived, and I get the opportunity to sit with you and chat with you today. So without further ado, I'm going to just turn it over to you to tell your incredible story. Mr. Bruce Cooper, known affectionately as Coop. And what an incredible career you've had. So I'm going to stop talking and let you take it away.
Well, thank you, Sintra. And just let me just start by saying, February 28th, 2009, my life changed dramatically forever. My son Marquise, an NFL player with the Oakland Raiders at the time, was his good friends Corey Smith, an NFL player with the Detroit Lions at the time, along with Nick Schuyler and Will Blakely. They were going on a fishing trip in the Gulf of Mexico. No big problem. My son has done that many times. Sunday morning, and this happened on a Saturday. This was a Saturday. Sunday morning around 6 a.m., and my wife and I were in the bed sleep. The phone rang. My wife, she answered it, and I heard an "Oh my God." I heard a second "Oh my God," and a third "Oh my God." Now I know something's up. I don't know what. So she hangs up the phone and says, Marquise went fishing and he never came home last night. He said it's on CNN right now. God. So we got up, we turned on the television and we're watching CNN, and oh my God, there is the story. 4 men are pictured, including our son. And I assured my wife, I said, look, Marquise is okay. Yeah, but they're all okay. I said, you know how your son is. He's a great swimmer. And I said, I'm sure they're just probably banked somewhere riding out the storm, because they're talking about 18-foot waves, very, very violent storm. And so I watched for a couple hours. I told my wife I was going to go ahead and go to church. So we normally do, but she said she was going to stay home. So I went to church, and a few of the church members had already known the story. So I just assured them, but he'll be okay. They'll all be fine. We're no problem. So from there, I went to work. And when I get to work, I see every television has a coverage of these 4 boaters missing at sea. And it's our lead story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you see these things all the time, but it always happens to someone else. It's not happening to you, but here you are in the eye of the media attention. And about 4:30 that afternoon, I was watching a report from a reporter in Tampa, because that's where they were, in Tampa, Florida. And he talked about how night was beginning to set, and another cold night. He talked about it looking real grim for the boys and their survival. And so for the first time, that started to resonate with me. So I called my wife and I told her, hey, we should probably head out to Tampa. Let's book a flight and head that way. And so I left work early and we booked the flight for mid-morning on Monday morning. Well, early Monday morning, as we were preparing to go to the airport, there was a breaking news. One of the boaters had been discovered, hanging on top of a boat, and it was Nick Schuyler. And so that really freaked my wife, and it freaked my daughter out. And so it was so tough. It says, there's no way we can leave on our flight right now. There's just too much information, too much breaking news going on right here. When we're all just clinging, for hope that, Marquise and the others will be found as well. I actually got a call and someone told me that, hey, there's a report that Marquise has been found. So, I mean, geez, we were all crying and happy and things, and it turned out that was a false report.
Oh.
So we missed our flight because we had to hang around to find out what was going on. Well, Marquise had a really good friend, a good family friend, Tank Johnson. He was a member of the Chicago Bears. And he called and said, hey, my owner is offering up this private jet for us all to fly to Tampa because we know he missed the flight. And so we graciously took that opportunity to fly to Tampa. And when myself, my wife, and my daughter, along with Tank and his mother, got off the plane, walking on the tarmac to go to a waiting car for us to take us to Marquise's home, you know, my wife and I, we just looked at each other and we didn't say a word. Our eyes connected. We was thinking the same thing. It was so bone-chilling cold out there. We said, my gosh, how can Marquise or anybody survive this? You know, especially out on the water. But we didn't say anything because we didn't want to alarm our daughter. So we went on to Marquise's home. The next day, we're just watching all the coverage, seeing if any more survivors are found or anything like this. And there was nothing. So then that was Tuesday. Wednesday morning, we get a call from Captain Close of the U.S. Coast Guard. And he is asking all the families to come down to the facility there. So we went, Cooper family, the Smith family, the Blakely family. And there, Captain Close lets us know that they're going to cease operations in terms of search. They're not going to search anymore. They're calling off the search. And I tell you, that news just devastated my wife. I've never really seen anyone just faint cold turkey. I mean, she just fell flat to the floor. So my daughter is hysterical. So I have to kind of grab her and kind of lead her out of the room because there's other medical people in the room and around the facility anyway that went to tend to my wife. Well, at this point, I said, gosh, you know, I got to do something. You know, I need to bring up our spirits, give us some hope. You know, they just took away our hope. Well, I went back into the room, made sure my wife was okay, and Captain Close pulled me aside. He says, look, I want you to hear this from me and not from the media. He says, but upon our rescue of Nick Schuyler, the lone survivor, we were able to do an interview with him. And he says that at some point, he says, strong winds and waves capsized the boat. And at some point, your son became delusional. He took off his vest and disappeared. He says, in the water. He says, I want you to hear that from me and not from the media or anyone else. I said, okay, thank you. There's no way I'm going to share this information with my wife or my daughter because they're just devastated at this point. So I know we need a pick-me-up. So I used the media to get out the word that we are going to start our own private search. And I'm asking for experienced pilots, experienced boaters to try to help us in this search that's been called off by the Coast Guard. Well, that gave us some hope for a while, you know, a couple days, but, you know, nothing was ever coming to fruition. Nothing was found. And so I tell you, from the day that I got there, you know, by day, I'm able to show a smiling face, some encouraging words and stuff. But at night, everything just slowed down. Everything just became so grim, so overwhelming. So at night, when everyone was going to sleep, I would take the alarm off, go outside, pace up and down, cry some more, pace up and down. Then I sit and watch the sun come up. And when I saw the sun come up, I'd go inside and reset the alarm and act like everything's normal. I did this for every night for 2 weeks that we were there in Tampa. At some point, I had to call off our own church and say, thank everyone, and we're heading back home to Phoenix.
Mm.
So that's what I did. We came back home, and at first week, I kind of took off. We kind of helped reassimilate ourselves back into the valley amongst all the still the media attention as well. And I might add this, that the media attention was just so over the top. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, I'm getting calls from CNN, Larry King, Oprah, the Today Show. Everyone wants to do a show. So I did a few interviews, including one big, massive one where we kind of take care of everyone at once. But back home, again now there's another round to go through, and so I decided I'd go back to work. But my first day back at work, I get a call that my wife had just lost it. She broke down. She had to be taken to the hospital and everything. Well, they had to medicate her because she had become suicidal. And I'm like, oh my gosh! I mean, what else can exacerbate this thing? The situation. My daughter was a freshman at the time at the University of Arizona in Tucson, so I'm kind of concerned about her, and we sent her back. So I'm checking with her friends to make sure she's doing okay. And it's got to the point to where I'm like, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
How do I fix this? And you talked about resiliency. You talked about being able to bounce back, and that's really what resiliency is to me. It's a setback. You can't have a comeback unless you have a setback. So resiliency is finding that comeback. Because we all get knocked down. It's how we get up that really defines your character and who you are. And so you just, there's no one that could help me in this situation. I mean, there's no advice anyone can give me. This is an experience that's so new to me. How do I deal with this situation? So I just said, you know what? I'm gonna ask God to help me out. I'm going to rely on my faith to pull me through this situation that is so new, so painful. I mean, it's the most devastating thing I've ever gone through in my life. I was devastated, but I have to put on a different facade. I have to show an outward strength because my wife and my daughter, they're depending on me. I have to show leadership here. And so for anyone out there, you have to find that motivation, something that can carry you or lift you up. And for me, it was twofold. I mean, I have people depending on me, and I have to show that strength. I have to show that leadership, though it's killing me inside. I can't let anyone know. And I go to work every day. I'm smiling, I'm caring about my business. I come home, I'm just letting everybody know everything's going to be all right. And I, myself, personally, I'm going to rely on define my strength from my Lord and Savior. And that's the only thing that really brought me through that whole situation.
But then what'd your body do to you then? Because I'm listening to you take care of everything and everyone, which is what a strong leader does. But then all of a sudden, things start changing within you. So what's your next chapter? How did your health get affected, and how did you mentally get affected through this?
Well, for me personally, I'm that type of person that it's not about me. It really isn't. I put myself last. It's more about the other people in and around me. They're the most important thing to me. So for me, it was just a matter of me just getting on my knees every night, you know, and just having that faith and praying for my own personal health and safety. Because I'll tell you this, I told you February 28th, 2009. Well, from the next day, it wasn't until March 24th. I still remember the day, March 24th. That's funny, because I said, God, you know, I felt like I was dying myself because I can't sleep. You know, I really can't eat. There's really nothing that's going on. I said, God, you know, physically, how am I going to be able to even stand tall and continue this march or this leadership? And March 24th, I don't know, I was lying in bed and I was just waiting for, making sure my wife was asleep so I can get up and do my pacing, but there was this calm that came over me. It's so difficult to explain. It just, you know, I used to just envision my son, you know, in this storm, this violent storm, because that's all I had to go by was this violent storm, and that he's reaching out for me for help, and I can't help him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a horrifying, recurring vision of mine. But for some reason, on March 24th, as I lie in my bed, there was this calm that came over me. I can't explain it. And from that point on, I was actually able to sleep at night, and the terror, the horror, began to dissipate. And I said, "Thank you, Lord." I mean, I'm able to now continue with the healing part because my wife, to see her going through that stage, and I'll tell you, I finally understood what suicide was all about, because I could never really fathom, well, why would someone take their life? Well, what would consume them so much that they felt like giving up? Well, I understood now. I understood. But yet I knew I had to fight for my wife and fight for my daughter and for everyone around me, and show that strength and that leadership. And hey, forget what I'm going through. My God's going to bring me through this, but I got to make sure that everyone else is good.
Yeah, you know, that's interesting that you talk about that time frame. I describe the time frame of, you know, my job loss to waking up every morning, feeling the same way, having that, you know, concern go through, saying all the words, right? It's this is for the best, this is for the best, this is for the best. And all of a sudden you wake up one morning and I felt that calm. And it was, for me, it was 30 days later. Now, I just lost a job, quite honestly. There's a whole world of difference there. But I do think with loss of, you know, a child, a parent, you know, however that comes to us, with that loss, obviously that grieving period, that confusion period, which is what you kind of described a little bit in the beginning, is what is happening? I'm not really ready to accept this reality. And then you start accepting it, but it hasn't filtered through until that March 24th date, until that 30 days later date for me. Then all of a sudden it's within your body and you're like, oh, all right, you know, I kind of get this, I can now move into that next stage.
Right. And you know, I think I still continue to stress through this whole period of time, because it was like an inward stress. You know, because I didn't really show it outwardly. And I know our time's running real short, but in October 30th of 2012, I suffered a massive heart attack.
That's where I was going next, because it's got to do something to you.
I can't tell you what it's like to suffer a heart attack, because I have really no memory of it.
Yeah.
But the things that I learned from my wife, the paramedics and doctors and things, is that, you know, my daughter has finished college now, so she's going to be a first-time homeowner. She has a condo that she has, and so we are just moving some of the small items in, because her mom and my daughter went shopping. They got all the furniture. It's going to be delivered later, so we're just taking some of the small things there. And they tell me, I was sitting on the stairs and I stood up and I just, you know, collapsed. And there's a 911 call that I've heard. And, when the paramedics got there, I wasn't breathing, so they used the defibrillator and to jumpstart my heart, get me going again. I hate the fact that my wife and daughter had to see that. Well, they took me by ambulance to the Arizona Heart Hospital, and I coded a second time there. And so again, they brought me back via the defibrillator. This time they decided that they needed to slow everything down. So they medically induced me into a coma. They dropped my body temperature down to 68 degrees. And I stayed in this coma for 3 days. And I had I'm oblivious to all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I can just tell you that when I woke up, I was strapped to some bed and I saw a bunch of nurses walking around. And I just thought that, oh my gosh, the only thing that made sense to me is that I died. I'm in heaven, and those are angels walking around. So I'm just waiting for God to come to me, and but God's taking a sweet little time getting to me. So I decided to stop one of the nurses there. I said, "Excuse me, who are you?" And she said her name was the Arizona Heart Hospital, which made absolutely no sense at all to me. So I started giving myself a pep talk, kind of, maybe snap myself out of whatever fog I'm in. I kept saying the same thing. These nurses walking back and forth. So I stopped the second one, asked who she was. She said what her name was with the Arizona Heart Hospital. She said, "You suffered a heart attack. You had a heart attack." I said, "Yeah, right." I knew that didn't happen. Well, about 5 minutes later, I see my daughter. And so she's now there. And so for the first time, I'm going to think, well, maybe I'm not in heaven. Maybe I'm not dead, And so she's describing to me all the situations that took place. Don't you remember this? Don't you remember that? And I said, no, I don't. And so the cardiologist came the next day and he told me that, I had 3 clogged arteries,
Oh my God.
2 at 95%, another at 90%, and that I'd have to have open heart triple bypass surgery. And so now I'm really freaking out. Oh my God, this could be it. This could be, that sounds pretty serious to me.
Yeah.
And through God's grace and mercy, I survived that heart attack. And I know I'm running out of time here. I think we're running out of time, so I may just have to cut that short. But yeah, it was one. I found some motivation through the fact that I was able to, like 2 days later, I felt fine. I just had this heart attack. So I said, wow, that was like, I feel like this is a record opportunity for me. And so because no one is fine after a couple of days. And like I said, I only got 10 minutes, so I better just stop right there. So, but yeah, certainly found motivation to keep going through the fact that I was blessed through this open heart situation and this massive heart attack situation. And I was told by the doctors that less than 10% of the people who suffer massive heart attacks survive.
Wow.
So I already know that I'm blessed and in an elite company. So again, that's motivation for me to keep pushing forward.
Nice. Well, if I have a heart attack, I want to do it that way. I want to know one thing 1 minute and then 3 days later wake up with angels all. So, I'm going to go back to your son's situation, and you're hearing this on the news. Here you are. That's your job, right? You're supposed to be out there and reporting what's happening, and then all of a sudden you're watching TV, or your wife in this case is watching TV, and she's getting this news. How was that experience?
I kept finding, because I've worked in the media for so many years, and I've seen these stories. I've seen how they're covered. It was clearly one of those situations was, this only happens to other people. It never happens to you. Mm-hmm. Yet here I found myself in the center of this media situation. And though my son stayed in a gated community, the news organizations, the live trucks, news trucks, they all found themselves right in front of the house. And so it's like you couldn't even walk outside of the house without a camera or people pointed at your direction. And so I understood what was taking place. And so what I did was I was able to set up a couple situations where, hey, I used my own news director to set up situations outside of the home to where I would meet up with the media give them like a little news conference. That way, it would provide more privacy and a way to get in and out of the house without cameras and reporters lurking around. But yeah, it was very, very strange. I mean, I've seen our station cover news events just like this.
Mm-hmm.
You go, nothing stops you. You
Right.
park out in front of someone's home and you wait. You're looking for that fresh video, that new video, that exclusive soundbite or whatever it may be. I've seen it all, and yet here it is. The tables are turned. It's on me now. And so understanding that and wanting to give some type of privacy to the families there, that I would kind of do those kinds of things. But yeah, it was very, very unusual, very strange. And it's like, when I would step outside the office maybe and maybe go to a game or something, I used to get stopped by people or fans who want to talk sports, who want to ask me about how this team is doing or how that player is this, that, and the other. Now I didn't become Coop. I stopped becoming Coops, the sportscaster, and now it's all about, they want to talk about
Your
that
family.
situation that's happened with me. They want to express their sorrow and maybe their opinions relative to the whole situation. So it was quite different. It was quite different.
So now I'm going to go into kind of where you are today. So you just retired, was it a year ago, a couple years ago?
Yeah, well, actually, after a 34-year run, it all ended for me August 7, 2020. And so I had plans to actually work with the AIA, the Arizona Interscholastic Association, which governs our high school athletics. Mm-hmm. I had been in talks with the executive director probably a year and a half before my retirement about this new partnership or me joining them. Well, when it came time for me to officially step aside, school was kind of, delayed. The start of school delayed because of the pandemic. And because of the pandemic, the sports were also delayed. And so it's like my plans are being really turned upside down, if you will, because I was also scheduled to go to Hawaii for a couple weeks with my wife. And from there, we were going on an Alaskan cruise, but all those things had to be canceled as well. And so as I sat at home, day after day, because you really couldn't go anywhere. I mean, no restaurants, no movies, there's just really nothing. I actually got a call from Steve Zabilski, the executive director at St. Vincent de Paul, and he offered me an opportunity to come work with him. And I initially declined it, but he called again and second time. And so now we talked about just working from a part-time standpoint. And I took that because I said, here's a chance for me to actually see if I can actually be an asset or impact people in need. And I learned that St. Vincent de Paul had so many other services that I didn't even know that they provided, that I'm kind of excited about maybe exploiting or showcasing some of those services that may go under the radar that they provide. And so that's what I am doing right now. So I'm really enjoying my bounce back, if you will. My second life, even though it's not what I originally had planned, coming out, once going into retirement, it's something that I find very fulfilling, and I like how things turned out for me.
And I think that's the key thing is, we have a plan, something disrupts it. And with resiliency, with having those knocks and being able to pick up, now we're able to, I think, pick up and go in a different direction much more easily. Let's talk a little bit about fear and anxiety. I think that's one of the questions that we have out there. So, we've both talked about the fear and anxiety and all that. Well, how do you deal with it? What are some coping mechanisms that you use? You talk quite a bit about your faith and just talking to God, having a conversation and saying, help me out here.
Sure.
What else did you bring into that?
Well, when you have a situation where you're trying to think more of others, or you put others ahead of yourself, then you find, and look, I mean, I think that mothers are just a great example of just that. I mean, when they become first-time mothers, you know, even looking at my wife's situation, you know, no one gave you
A
a
manual.
roadmap on how to do it. It just becomes instinctual because you're going to care for that child. All of a sudden, the wisdom comes pouring out, the love comes pouring out. You know all the answers that when you can hear your babies cry from anyone else's. It sounds so simple, but yet it is so true. And so in this situation here, when fear and anxiety comes in, you know, if you allow yourself to be feel sorry for yourself, you allow those emotions to come in, then I think you're probably setting yourself up for maybe a harder time. But if you find something, that motivates you, you'll be surprised how that can inspire others. You see, because people have told me often that they found so much inspiration or so much strength in my strength. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing that I set out to try and do, but you know, the fact that I'm able to not make this about me,
Right.
and more so about others. And so I look at our elderly population out there, you know, who have been separated from their families and things like this. You know, if they allow themselves to say, woe is me, then I think, you know, that's the situation become more dire and they become maybe more depressed. But if they can find that motivation, say, hey, I'm going to see my daughter again. I'm going to see my son or whoever it is, you know, I got to get better. If you start focusing more in on them, you find some inner strength within you that can push you through. And that's again, life is full of setbacks. We all have them. We're not independent or exclusive from them. But how will we respond? How do we respond? And I think that's the key.
So we have, I think, a minute left here. There's a lot of great wishes for you out there in your retirement, in the next steps. Great hopes for your and well wishes to your wife.
Yeah.
I want to ask. I was reading a little bit about you, obviously, to prepare for this, and something that I saw that one of the quotes that you have is, "If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything." So, what do you stand for?
You know,
Related to this topic.
Well, I stand for wanting the best for others. I mean, honestly, I really do. I'm one of those persons that, like, I'd rather give than receive. I mean, it could sound cliche-ish, but that's just who I am. And that quote is something that I actually saw in a locker room when I was young. And it didn't really mean anything to me at the time. I thought it was pretty cool. But as I got older, I started to find out exactly what that means. I mean, there was two sayings in the locker room that stood out. And the other one was when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Yep.
And then,
Yep.
then that one, yeah, those are the two that always kind of stayed with me. And I only understood the true meaning as I got older. And I know where I'm
Awesome. It was such an incredible honor and pleasure to sit with you here this morning, Coop. To get to know you for the first time, but I feel like I've known you forever. So this was really awesome. So thank you for being here. Thank you to Sun Health and obviously to the University of Phoenix.